Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham, which is quite pleasant, really. It's quite summery, the fall, so it's been quite nice. Flowers are kind of, a little beat up and such, but just wonderful, sunny, warm. Can't complain at all. Hardly any complaints. So anyway, fish and golfing videos maybe. That's what you get this week. Trying some new 360-degree camera thing I got for 15 bucks. Pretty good. Anyway, so that's enough of the news of local crap. I don't think this will work. Look at this blue sky. Look at that little chemtrail-y stuff. Anyway, I can just sit here and put this camera down even. Probably going to fall over or something, but what do I care? My audience doesn't need much. Doesn't deserve much, frankly. People are just so loopy. So, there's so many subjects to weave together here. There's this dissident science guy that I did an interview with, conversation anyway. I got to hold my head because he's hurting it a little. Anyway, it's a nice conversation, all that kind of stuff. It's just that I can see where we're just going to keep banging into some walls. We'll see how long it lasts. I think it's going to be a stormy relationship. But anyway, sort of positive, but I just don't know if this is. Don't know if you can. Dissidency only goes so far in terms of common interests. It's like me and Piero. As soon as you get to a point where there's, some emphatic thing they're going to defend, and it's just like a religion or something, and it's just like, fuck no, I'm not playing that. It just gets in the way. So Piero's part of the conversation because he made a stupid video saying something like, why would a river need to think it was deciding anything? As if we need to think that, and we really don't need to. And this will also get to the modern mystic eventually. So anyway, I'll leave a link to the dissident science interview video thing in case you're interested. Some physics in it, but more, I tried anyway to get the conversation more about how to get it past these barriers of people finding each other so fucking obnoxious. This is a real problem, The biggest problem, maybe, in terms of conversation and the rhetoric people use, and it just gets offensive. And people don't think they're being offensive when they're being grotesquely offensive. And it's a real problem. There needs to be some mechanism to disengage the sidetracks that are unnecessary from common interest. I've sort of talked about this before, like it would be very nice to have a charitable organization or some other not-for-profit thingy, political, that was a la carte, where you only supported the things you supported, not the United Way bullshit, not the agenda thing. So you gave people, options of things to support in direct ways without having to subsidize something else. The opposite of like the cable industry that keeps trying to force you to buy stuff you don't want, ESPN and such. That you might even find anti your cause. So it's like the Democratic Party being now glued to, open borders and free immigration and all that kind of crap, and every immigrant's a wonderful human being and all that shit. They're just burying their viability because it's such an obnoxious premise to try to shove down rational people's throats. Especially in the context where 10 years ago the Democratic Party understood what a scab was and understood that you're never going to have any kind of decent wages. Labor's going to have no power if you keep importing people who are desperate and are willing to eat gruel and live in shit, and they'll do the work. If you're going to import uncivilized, desperate animals and say that's the standard everybody has to live up to, what would the animal do? Well, You know, why ask the question? That's not that's civilized. I don't want to live like an animal. I don't want to compete with a brontosaurus. I just don't. I don't want to compete with a praying mantis. I don't want to compete with bugs. Desperate bugs. You know, the fact that these progressives can't understand that you can't have progress unless there's pressure for it. And you don't create any pressure for it if everybody's just exploiting everyone. If exploitation is the ground game, then that's the game they'll run to. That'll be the default game, dumbass, is. And yes, that's offensive to call people dumbasses, but it's just so fucking dumbass. I mean, civilization is a precious thing. It's a complex thing. It's a delicate thing. And they just don't treat it with any respect whatsoever. They just think it just happens. You just snap your fingers and it happens. Import all the huddled masses in the universe, and no problem, we can feed them all cat food. You know, fuck you. Anyway, moving on. So this dissident science guy did another interview with some other, seems like a Canadian because it's a little weird, a little hyper. And they got in a little bit to this mind science, you know, of the subject of determinism. And, you know, some of it was good, I mean, in the sense that they didn't say the word robot, but there was a lot of conversation, you know, about the fact that we're just mechanical brains that are reacting and they're programmed, and there's not much else going on here. And so that relates sort of this Pyrrho thing and the hard problem bullshit of why are we conscious? Well, we're conscious because it worked as a mechanism to create a feeling thing and then make the feeling thing think of ways to fix its feelings. So make it have a reflexive feeling, that is a knee-jerk ouch or a gratification of a deprivation, you know, the sex, food, that kind of stuff, and then let it strategize with, you know, a certain amount of strategy neurons, a solution to its feeling problem. And that's why we think we're making decisions. It's just because the thinking part has to solve the feeling part problem. And in that process, it's just going to think, you're going to think you're thinking of solutions. And you actually are. It's just that the you part is just the feeling bit, okay? And you don't get to see the thinking bit. You know, as I've pointed out over and over again, I don't think about what I'm going to say in these videos. I don't know what sentence is going to come out of my mouth at next. And they're ordered and constructed, and it's highly coherent, I would argue, most of my videos, and well arranged, and the vocabulary is all placed in the right place, the emphasis is all placed in the right place. There's no I that does that. My brain just farts it. It mechanically creates all of that in these milliseconds of time, and does he makes a coherent narrative story, tells a story, and it's all prearranged by the brain, you know, and it's just a brain function. And so it's a silly question to ask why, because it's evolution, dumbass. Evolution doesn't care how it gets to an end, okay? Any means will do, and this is the means that evolution fell upon to create an organism that solves problems that have to do with basically rewarding successful transfer of DNA into the next generation. So to successfully transfer DNA into the next generation, it's recognized by evolution that having some intelligence and having this feeling thing that compels you and motivates you works. It works very well. That's why the mammals all have it, and the reptiles and all these animals have this sensation problem to solve. Okay, they get into a trap or a rock falls on them. They're not really fixing the problem of the rock. They're fixing the problem of it's uncomfortable to have a rock on top of me. And so they're squirming to get away from the pain or the discomfort. They're not squirming to get away from the rock. They're not really fixing the real problem on purpose. They're doing it indirectly by fixing the internal problem of, I don't like that. And it's not complicated, in my opinion. And I don't think I think that's an indestructible model of brain function. It's not, you know, it's not detailed, but I just mean as as an outline of how the thing functions. That's the game. It's not complicated. There's no mystery or paradox or anything else about the fact that we think, and the fact that we're not a stream or a waterfall. That's why we have a big brain. It's because we can do things the waterfall can't. I mean, to have to explain that to people is just so fucking amazing. You have to explain that parameciums don't have neural activity. They can't be having a conscious experience because we know where consciousness is. It's in the brain. I mean, fuck. Alright, so this also relates to the modern mystic. So, yeah, it's all connected. Ways, one way or another, it all gets round and round, right? So, he made a video that, he's made a couple of videos since he tore down all his old videos. He did make a couple of new videos, but he only left them up for a few hours. He made one saying it's not, rain. And he was just saying, he was looking outside and saying, it's raining out there, but it's not raining in here. And, using this, I would assume, as a metaphor for, hey, until it's a problem in here, I don't recognize it as a problem. And that's the real problem with how people do all these kinds of things. It almost makes me want to bring up the David, the guy again. He's like, he's a vegetarian, but he's one because it cured his heart disease. No mention of the fact that, yes, it's not nice to torture animals. Doing the right thing for the wrong reason kind of stuff. But just so much of, this whole human endeavor is based on these narratives we're taught. We're taught to be selfish. We're taught to think we think. To think that our function is something besides a program, and that the program is completely written by what language we speak, what culture we were raised in, what education we've had the benefit of, what stupid TV shows we've watched, what kind of, haggy succubus beat the shit out of us or whatever. I mean, whatever the thing is that happened to us is what we're a byproduct of. And we're not taught that we're byproducts, because that doesn't make everybody feel special. And so this idea of what the agenda of a brain should be, of what your brain should be doing with its capacity to compute. So it's this computing device. It's like a calculator. And most people think the only job of this calculator is to calculate their personal interest, because they can't think any better than a lizard. I mean, that's what a lizard does. That's what a praying mantis does. Praying mantis doesn't consider, I'm grabbing other things and they might feel and I'm torturing them and blah, 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 blah. Now, the praying mantis can't know that, so it has an excuse. We can, though. So when we torture something, or we cause somebody pain, or we risk their lives by driving drunk, or when we do sloppy and reckless and careless things, we can see it. We can know we did it. We can know it's wrong. And we have a mechanism to prevent doing it in the future, in terms of we can guilt or deter ourselves from being assholes. We can identify what an asshole is. We can identify ourselves as in that category, and we can appropriately say, I don't want to be in that category, so I have to do certain things not to be in that category. And none of these other animals can do any of that in this context. They don't have the language for it. I wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. None of us would be able to do it if we didn't have the benefit of language and education and taking 19 years or 20 years to kind of figure out what the fuck you're doing. And it'll take even longer than that because you've been so poorly educated that you have so many wrong notions in your head. It might not be until you're 50 when you start talking like a rational person. Truly rational, truly fact-based conversations about our reality and our obligations. Hot. Yeah, really is nice. So Nick's excuse that he can't find any reason to make clouds and rain in his brain, or he can't find any reason to think that there's anything in the world that indicates maybe it is raining in his head, and he's just not letting it hit his, he's not letting it have an impact. He's put up an umbrella, a guard against it, and it's just pretending the game is just his game. And that's all he's playing for, is how does Nick feel? What does Nick feel like doing? And consequences, like if he do something and it's going to cause something else harm, he's avoiding that rain. He's avoiding taking responsibility for the fact that it's raining really hard. out there, and it's beating the shit out of everything, and that shit isn't any different than the shit you've got going on. Them in the rain isn't any different than you in the rain. You with a broken leg isn't any different than him with a broken leg. I mean, understanding that simple truth just fucks you as a me player if you're going to be honest. So all you have to do is be intellectually honest, and you're done saying my calculator, my thinking machine, has no other purpose but then to make me happy. It doesn't have to consider that happiness is a concept in the universe, that it's happening all over the place, this value of misery and comfort, and that once you know that your comfort isn't any more meaningful in universal terms than anyone else's comfort, then you have to go with whoever's most economical at acquiring satisfaction. That's the winner. And if it's not you, you have to just accept that maybe sometimes your brain has to work for solving world problems, not just solving your problems. And you have to devote some energy to investing in the productivity you might be able to create in the function of the world that would prevent the rain from harming things as much. Something like that. And so that goes to Pyrrho too, just because of this whole idea of what you're thinking isn't some fantasy adventure game we're involved in here. The mechanics of our capacity to do logic is strict, in the sense that the contradictions are obvious when you say them. Like, okay, there can be more than one God, or more than one story can be true, or more than one reality could be reality, or some kind of crap like that. We've already broken any kind of rational continuity. The opposite things can be true, or some kind of crap like that. There's right answers to the questions. And the only real question is when have you tried the evidence hard enough and well enough to make a decision? And is the evidence itself weighty enough to make a decision? And I'd say clearly on most of these subjects the evidence is overwhelming that the biggest enemy to the human race are stupid people who act selfishly and ignorantly and create problems that everybody else has to solve, like having kids they can't pay for. And all kinds of stuff like that, taking chances and risks that somebody else has to pay the bill for. Not only their victim, not only their autistic child has to live a tormented and struggling life, but society has to pay a huge amount of money to, integrate the defective into to some sense of a meaningful life. And so you got to spend a fortune to create golf courses for blind people or something. I mean, silly shit where, oh yes, I'm actualized now because I can do what everybody else does. I only do it at a price that's preposterously expensive. I only have 17 people, wheel me to the event, and it only took millions of dollars to create the sufficient number of ramps. I mean, come on. It's irrational nonsense that there's function in not recognizing the fact that there are standards, and there's a point where you have to admit something's too expensive. You don't give people who've been alcoholics for 50 years and shown no capacity to clean up their act. You don't give them new livers at the price of $300,000. They haven't earned it. And they're not going to do anything with that. With their more years of life, they're not going to do anything productive with them anyway. So you're spending $300,000 on something that's demonstrated itself to be a lemon, and there's no real potential for it to be anything else, but to have some other problem it wants you to fix. I don't want to get draconian about this, because obviously I do believe in civilization, and I believe in mitigating against, being sympathetic to people's differences and their insufficiencies. So I'm not making any statement that we have to be, draconianly Darwinistic about it in some kind of silly sense. I'm just concerned with productivity requires you to have some kind of minimums in terms of standards. You just can't keep making can't make monster trucks that get 2 miles to the gallon. You can't do things that are just so expensive, like having rich people, for example, where you waste 70% of the resources on luxury mansions and vacation homes, and it's their 7th or 8th or 10th home that nobody lives in, that's heated and manicured. All that labor is wasted, and it could be labor that was put to the good use of building a Hoover Dam or doing something constructive to all of mankind. But instead it's wasted on an indulgence that somebody rides around their yacht 4 days out of the year. And so all of that expense for something that derives very little practical comfort is derived out of it. So you have to be aware of those efficiencies, and they happen on both ends. They happen on just the selfish bastard end, and then it happens on the too fucking broken end, where, like I said, the dumb and the stupid have to be put on a leash, because if you just keep letting them do whatever they feel like doing, they're going to feel like doing things that are going to ruin civilization. It's not really the subject I wanted to get on. This really wasn't where I was going, but it's good enough. Because all this liberal crap is, you can just see that, like I said, it just creates the, even more than ever, I am stuck without a party, stuck without a group to be affiliated with, because there seems to be only one thing, there's crazy right, and they're all crazy. They're just righter and righter and righter, and they're all nuts. Not one, I could never vote for a Republican because there's not a single platform they have that's rational. And even if they say they're going to do something like, we're going to fix immigration, they're not really going to do that. They're going to engineer the immigration to be profitable to the wealthy, and they're not going to do anything for the immigrants or the people who are most affected by them, the working class. So that's just a lie. If we wanted to fix, like I've said this before, this is old news. It was known years ago when they tested it, that employer sanctions work. You have sanctions on employers, you force people to have real ID, and you sanction employers for hiring people without that real ID, and you solve the immigration problem, because if people can't work here, they won't come here. That's simple. That would be the solution. It would be worth giving everyone here now citizenship and just say, from now on, this is the rule. Okay? And then there's no one going to be coming here. They won't come here if they can't get jobs here. It's not that complicated. Another subject, it's not really the subject of the video, but it's this subject is, so yeah, I'm a progressive in huge ways. I like huge social infrastructure investment. The rich are useless baggage. They're just way expensive nonsense, especially the inheritance wealthy, which is most of the wealthy. They never earned it, never did any constructive work, just create rackets, force us to work in shyster industry. It's all, people call me every day with some kind of, racket. No, those people don't want to be selling a racket. But that's the only job they can get is I crank call people and try to persuade, find people that are stupid enough and gullible enough to fall for the spiel I'm going to dump on them. Those people who are doing that don't want to do that. They don't want to have an honest job. But the capitalist industry won't provide it because the rich can't get richer doing honest work. So yeah, I hate the rich. I'm all for the working class. I'm for giving the workers the most power in our society. The productive workers, not the ones that are, doing nonsense work. The ones that are building social infrastructure, especially. And I'm for putting a limit on, how much the broken, even like myself, can expect, in terms of compensation, for any limitations you might have. This has to be a limit somewhere. You can't afford to spend. It's like the healthcare system. You can't afford it. You can't afford to give everybody $200,000 worth of health care, because a lot of those people will never make $200,000 worth of profit in their lives. And so the money's got to come out of that working guy again, and it's just not practical. And when you think about the real cost, it's really to have your health care you basically have to burn down your house. You don't get to have a house, or you have to pay twice as much for your house to have your health care. And if people understood what the trade-offs were, I think they'd understand that, yeah, maybe you can't give everyone everything. Maybe they have to earn it. And again, I think it's a fair word, earning. And the rich don't earn it. They just take it as a possession. Yeah. Daddy gave it to me. A disgusting ethic. But people will, there are human beings that will defend that ethic. My kids deserve a head start. They've earned cheating in a race. Yeah, how so? It's just a disgusting ethic. If we applied it in any other circumstance, everybody would be appalled. If you had horse races where the special horses got to go halfway down the track, that's their starting line. They're special. The Olympics. Oh yeah, no, his father won a gold medal, so he gets to go halfway down the track. Oh, nobody would fall for that. No one. Then we're back to the logic thing again. How can people be doing rational logic and make sense out of that? Okay, I have these games where I have rules, and I understand why there has to be rules. It's because people cheat, and I kind of know what fairness is, and we can develop these rules and have a good game. And yet, the biggest game in town, ownership of the world, no rules necessary. Let the cheaters rule. That conflict, okay, the fact that these assholes wouldn't watch a wacky sport of, look, the guy who inherited it. Look, we're handing him the gold medal because his father won one, so we're handing him one. Yeah, there's no event. We didn't bother the pretense of a race. Fuck it, we're not even going to do that anymore. So let's just have the Olympics, and we'll just give all the sons and daughters of the previous winners and their granddaughters and the great-granddaughters and the great-grandsons, and we'll just hand them gold medals. We'll have a big parade and a big ceremony, opening ceremonies and torches and all kinds of fun. And then we'll just have a bunch of ceremonies where we hand the gold medals over to the inheritees. And I'm sure everybody's going to just tune in and say, gee, that's such a wonderful program. It's just so uplifting. It makes me feel so proud. No, I don't think so. And I don't think so in a draconian way. Like, if you think otherwise, you are the dumbest piece of fucking scuzzy blight. And I just can't hope you into a pancake harder than I hope you into a pancake. And not when it's edible. I mean some kind of road pancake. You stupid dumb fuck. But anyway, not the intended subject either. Camera still on? Apparently. So anyway, yeah, maybe I'll cut it off here and then I can do some more later or something indoors. But yes, it's spectacular out here. Spectacular. Something else to say. Spectacular. Probably should have dusted the lens, but you can't have. Well, you should be able to have more than I'm willing to produce, but doing the best I can. No, not really. I'm doing the best my brain has come up with, and I'm hoping, it's going to keep rolling with these negative feelings about my accomplishments and say, you're not doing good enough, you're not doing good enough. It's going to keep saying that, and that'll keep wearing on me. And, I'll up the game. I'll find it in me. So that's just part of it. I just don't have the fortitude of a 21-year-old anymore. Just been in the trench too long, and it has rotted things. It's rotting me. But anyway, yeah, I don't know if I wanted to bring that up, but the Sinclair, I can't remember. Anyway, very pleasant chick types person. She's very depressed and talking suicide and whatnot, and it's just all kind of you know, your instinct is always just kind of negative to somebody's negative condition, and you want to just say something sappy like, well, just put on a pair of warm socks, it'll all be okay. Yeah, no, that doesn't really happen. And I know from my own experience that if I wasn't incredibly lucky, the luck may run out, and I might have to, you know, the worst case scenario may happen, and I might go completely psychotic and all that kind of crap because things are beyond my tolerances. But I've been very lucky to keep things within my tolerances, and so I can appreciate the risk that, you know, somebody who's feeling that discomfort. Oh, these little white flies are back. You bastards, you. Anyway, you know, somebody who's feeling that I just can't do this. I just can't live in this world the way it's constructed. And that is a horrible feeling, to feel like you're always dodging bullets of psychological despair and torment. And like I said, I still sense it, but I don't live it as hard as I used to, because I'm, you know, I have a survivor's confidence in the sense that, okay, I've managed to keep this boat afloat. You know, even though it's got all these holes in it, I've bailed the water and I've managed to keep going, so maybe I can continue to keep going. And so that gives you a little bit better, a little comfort to get through it. But yeah, it's a terrible, you know, it's just part of this whole thing. Like, people just don't feel bad about doing that. There's people who are going to be tortured by their existence, and the people defending life have to account for that torture and say, yes, I'm worth it. And I'm just saying, I don't see it. I don't see anybody on this fucking planet who can raise their hand and say, I'm worth it. Because you're not. Not even close. Your over-approximation of your functionality and your value and your contribution and your whatever it is, it's a preposterous exaggeration of what can be reasonably deduced from the evidence, which is there's no evidence or anything other but a fucking bug. Alright, I was going, and I didn't manage to do it. Did I tell you how this, you know, spectacular this weather is? I mean, for the middle, you know, halfway, more than halfway through September, you know, 3/4 of the way through September. Just, I'm going to really be pissed when the real, you know, when the real weather shows up. It's going to suck. So anyway, just sharing my joy. Ew, what a disgusting thing to do. It won't last. Anyway, even the cats like it. Yes, it's comfortable everywhere, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, he's still got some sort of sinus issue. But he's alive, which is, you know, he's died like at least 6 times. You know, so he doesn't have too many lives left, but he is likewise a survivor. It looks very nice over here. Tomato garden and such, the marigolds and whatnot. So things aren't a complete disaster, but weird things happen like this. You know, this died off in a weird way. This one's kind of anemic. Don't exactly know what the issues are. The weather's really been quite nice, but anyways, minor complaint. Still plenty of stuff looks decent. Yeah, the blind cat is still, I gotta watch where I'm stepping, because in a state of blindness he poos everywhere that he shouldn't. But anyway, I have to deal with that, and I don't want to. Crap. Anyway, till whatever happens after I press the button. Till then. I'm back. Yeah, mostly. This camera froze, you know, when I was making the other video, so I thought it was all gone. I said, gee, that was a pretty good video for, you know, to be all gone, to have to do it over again. So I was grateful. Didn't have to do that over again. Wouldn't have been the same video. Might have been a better one, who knows, but it just wouldn't have been the same. Like that matters, really. So, finishing up. Again, my focus is sort of, there's the subjects, but the subjects to me don't seem all that complicated. Just frankly. Evolution, brutal force, in a sense of imposition, creation, / creation. Just dumb as it could be, and no reasoning skills whatsoever applied. Horrendous waste and inefficiency in accomplishing the task of making a winner. You can just diagram how brutal the entire tree of life is. Just what a nasty fungus of horror it's just made out of. And it's just not a debatable thing. I mean, evolution is what it is. It has no brain, and it's really easy to insult it as a mechanism. And all you have to do is recognize that you can't pull that out. You can't extract the fact that nature doesn't have any good ideas. It just makes messes. And now we're stuck with the dilemma of a mess. And there's two kinds of people. People who are willing to sigh and stand up and do something about cleaning it up, and people who just run away and pretend it's okay. It's all excusable. It's all defendable. Go ahead, have another world war, kill another 50 million people, who cares, blah, 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 blah. I don't give a shit how many sentient rodents or other feeling mammals are ground up every day in little tragedies of horror and gross suffering. Not my problem. Yeah, well, that's a stupid person's response. So, identify yourself belonging to the club of the imbecile, because that's the only way you can make the game make any sense. It's only a game for complete retards. You have to be completely retarded to see a good game anywhere in this slop. But anyway, so that's simple to me, right? 2 minutes, you're done. Evolution. I just say evolution 443 times in a row. I mean, I could just beat people over the head with the evolution stick and just say, come on, you can't make evolution into fairy princess, happily ever after, oh, what a brilliant idea. No, none of that exists. It has no integrity on any level. Intellectual, honorable, it just doesn't give a shit about any level of integrities. It has none. Anyway, I'm making the argument some more. There's so many ways to illustrate just how meat grinder it is. And that's all you people are doing, is polishing a meat grinder. You're washing and waxing the meat grinder and thinking yourselves proud. Look at the wonderful shine on that chrome. You're assholes. Preposterous assholes working for the Borg meat grinder. That's your accomplishment in life, you stupid fucking idiotic optimists. You silly fucked-hearted, get-alongers. You're just such fucking house slaves. Anyway, so owned by, not recognizing the game isn't about getting along. No. The game is about stopping the game. So, in that vein, Van gave me a link to these people write articles on this thing called Quatora. Yeah. And I don't know, this is some guy, David Pierce, the Neuroethics Foundation. I don't know what the fuck that is. Anyway, he says some shit. He mentions my name as a strong antinatalist. But he does qualify me as an ethicist, yeah, and then uses my name, which I don't think is necessary. But anyway, but yes, he doesn't agree that there can be any solution to the problem of life on Earth. That there's no such thing as the graceful exit. That human energy and initiative can't be put to the problem and solve it. He's just a give-upper. Oh, we can't win the war, so I don't have to bother working at it or fighting for it. It's just cop-outery. And it ends with a statement. Well, I'll read this last view. In my view, strong antinatalism is misguided. Voluntary childlessness cannot solve the problem of suffering. So you're just giving people no solution then. David Benatar ignores the nature of selection pressure in his book, The Harm of Coming into Existence by David Benatar. He doesn't do that, but anyway. Likewise, apocalyptic solutions. Well, again, it wouldn't be an apocalypse. So that's just your way of looking at it. It's not an apocalypse when you turn somebody's, the respirator off on the person who's already dead. Solutions aren't sociologically credible, says you. So this guy apparently knows exactly what the human race is going to do and how it's going to evolve, and how and what intelligent people are going to do. And he says, inescapably, the future belongs to life lovers. Now, he doesn't have a theory to defend that inescapable part, because we have perfect examples of it not working that way. The Japanese, for example, declining population, and many European countries declining internal population growth. If it wasn't for immigrants, the population of the countries would be in decline. Those are facts. So how can you use a word like inescapable when those facts exist? Exactly, you want to defend that asshole? But see, this is where arguments happen between people. Because people make emphatic statements, and they don't realize that your obnoxiously emphatic statement is completely abhorrent to other people's perception of what is or is not possible. So you're just challenging them. You're saying, I'm going to provoke an argument. So, fine, you provoked it. In this rude kind of way. Like, what, are you stupid? Do you think it's possible for people to think? What, you think human beings could be smart and not stupid? No, they have to be stupid. Isn't that proven? Stupidity rules, stupidity wins. Well, no, it only wins, if, I guess I pointed out, if smart people let it. If smart people just sit back and say, idiocracy, go ahead, take over, then that's what happens. Idiocracy takes over. But the only thing standing in the way is your lack of will to motivation, thoughts, your defeatism is the only thing standing in the way, from my perception, because the battle is so close to already won. Most people in the world now don't have kids. And certainly well over a majority of people don't have enough children, 80% let's say, to sustain human population over time. So 80% of the people are already doing antinatalism, and here you are talking defeatism. That's such bullshit. And then this idea that we can't find a technical solution to the infestation problem on Earth? Oh, come on. We accidentally create whole dead pools on the ocean. We accidentally murder and annihilate and sterilize sections of this planet. If we do it on purpose, I think we can get the job done, asshole. So anyway, so this is just an illustration of how I don't like this guy. And I don't like him because of this rhetoric. How dare you tell me, what is or is not inescapable? I mean, fuck you. If you're going to say something like that, then you better back it up with some sort of evidence. And what's your evidence going to be? Well, people never in the past have ever flown in airplanes, so they never will. That's going to be your evidence? some kind of bogus bullshit that, well, because we haven't done it before, we can't do it different later. I mean, it's just crap. It's not based on anything. So that brings me to the other guy, the other David, D. Hissner, and it's like I said, I like the guy, and there's a link below. I like his whole I like the intent, or the motivations that exist, something like that. I don't know exactly how to describe what it is I'm appreciating, but there's some element of I'm appreciating. Let's just say. What the hell did I do with the video? I know it was here, mostly. Oh, there it is. All right, so we had a conversation with him. Like I said, I had an interview with him, and I see a real liability in it's like the liberal agenda. If there isn't some way to make it possible for people who can have divergent interests to have a common purpose, in the sense that somehow they're working for something, doesn't mean that they're working for the thing they don't want to have happen. It's the liability, like I pointed out. I mean, I will never vote for a Republican, but I can't vote for Democrats who talk about opening borders and shit. It's just too irrational. And so you're left with nothing. And so unless there's some way, to have some sort of reasoned conversation and at least try to persuade the flag bearers that as long as you have that swastika on the flag, I'm not marching in the parade. I mean, so you could just take that part off, and then we're okay. Make it understood that you're not going to be able to win this war, because I can't fight for that. I can't be a bedfellow with somebody who believes in that. And that, this is a problem with all kinds of groups and getting along with people. And so this David guy's been talking about these kind of things, and he has all these rules about how, he would do it in terms of careful language and being careful not to be too aggressive. And then he just stomps, in my opinion, right over his own warnings that there are certain rules you have to obey. Based on his own, like I said, he has his own theory. and he thinks he's right. Well, guess what? I think I'm right. And so he's trying to exclude anything that might make him wrong, anything that exists in the current system that, is in conflict with his system. And clearly I'm preserving the stuff that does fit into his system, like maybe wave theory or something. Where I'm obviously doing exactly the opposite, in the sense I'm going to do the same as regards to the stuff I don't see any use for. But I don't think I'm going to bother making statements about there's no such thing as a Big Bang Theory, or there's no possibility it could be right, or I'm not going to make any of those statements, because I don't care one way or the other. It's not that important. So anyway, he made this video about how charge isn't real. And as a concept it is, and he's basically saying, well, concepts aren't real until you put them in your hand. But he's doing exactly the opposite in his rhetoric. It just, it just points out how difficult this is. That it's almost impossible to, unless everybody understands the same axioms going in, the same infrastructure meanings. Like I said, if I'm talking to another progressive and he doesn't understand how excess labor destroys wages, if he just doesn't understand how that's how it works, then we're not going to understand the same threats at all. Yeah. And that culture is something that, people are best raised in. People do their culture best when they're raised in it. There's a higher probability that they'll value it and attempt to preserve it. If they're imported into a culture, then they're usually going to be dragging their own hot dog McDonald's attitude into somebody else's territory and be the obnoxious American. That's just a fact. And whoever thinks they have a right to be that kind of immigrant, like I said, I just think that's just obnoxious. You're going to go to somebody else's country and you're not going to pick up their habits. You're going to force them to accept your habits. That's not a good definition of immigration. It's not the kind of immigrant. If we have a form, if that's the kind of immigrant you want to be, then fuck you. No. If you want your religion to be part of government, well, no, you don't. We don't do that here. So, go immigrate somewhere else. And fuck. Not that complicated. Anyway, so I'll play this little clip, and then I'll read a comment he left to me, and you'll just see this. This is problematic, and it's all kind of preachy, and he just gets kind of like, yeah, you're talking down to me because, well, you're a linguist or something, and so then you're the one preserving language, and from authoritize. Well, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not playing that. So anyway, I don't mean any of this. This isn't an angry thing. This is just it's complicated. It's difficult getting along with people, and it needs structure, and that's why I've argued that we need a debate forum that imposes structure and rules, and that would be really cool. But yeah, it has to be, somebody has to want it enough to pay for it. Nobody wants to pay for it, so it won't exist.
Second thing I'm going to talk about today is emotion in debate. The moment someone says, show me, it doesn't even matter what they say after that. What that means is it's a command. It's meaning, I am emotionally mad at you, so prove it.
Okay, so you heard him say that, right? And then what does he do in this comment he posts? Force, energy, charge, they're all concepts that are not real. We use force, charge, and energy to calculate useful stuff. Well, that's not all it's used for, frankly. I mean, and Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, we understand what these different things sort of represent, but there's no imposition that by saying E equals mc squared, that we're saying we're explicitly, c squared is sort of explicit, but what exactly mass is and what exactly energy is doesn't have to be defined. It just has to be defined to understand the relationship between these things. So anyway, he says, continuing, to calculate useful stuff. I don't give a shit about this useful crap. We're talking about whether it is being fair or reasonable to the true circumstance to use a word like charge to identify the phenomenon, which is electrons and protons behaving fundamentally differently to the same force, the same circumstances, and they react in exactly opposite manner. And that's a phenomenon, and it's a real phenomenon, and calling it charge isn't doing something unreal. Okay, anyway. So then he says, give me 3 forces, 3 energies, and 3 charges, and put them in my hand. You can't. So here, exactly the same thing he says, oh, that turns me right off. I'm done listening to you. As soon as you give me this bullshit, you want this put in your hand, well, fuck you. And here he is doing exactly the same thing to me. I can put matter in your hand, but not charge. No, I could put a charge in your hand. I can drop an electron in your hand. And I could drop a proton in your hand. Yeah, but you can't see them. What I'm saying, if we could make them really big and you could see them, you're going to see the difference between the two fucking things. And that difference is why there's charge. The difference is why one is pushed into something and one is repelled from something. It'll be there. It'll be in its structure. So all you're saying, oh, it's because we can't, because I don't have a magnifying glass good enough, I can't argue that this phenomenon exists. Yeah, I can. And be a real person, making real arguments. It's just offensive to say charge isn't a real concept. It's real. So he says, you cannot simply objectify concepts. Of course you can. Concepts like murder, yeah, we can understand what it means as an event. Concepts are as real as any other part of our existence. Because they're describing what the material things do. They're describing what the bits do. What they do is just as real as what they are. I can't say any clearer than that. So anyway. Yeah, so, I mean, the part where he says, put them in my hand, I quoted that in my comment, said, newsflash, because now I'm going to be offensive back. They are really small. And then he has his own theory of particles, and he calls them G1 particles. And so I ask, have you ever held a G1 in your hand? So anyway. So, like I said, I don't want to provoke any hostility here. But I'm just pointing out that this conversation thing is difficult because, yes, having an organization of dissidents or people who are opposed to something, it's like all the people opposed to Trump. They can all agree that Trump is bad, but there's very little agreement about why Trump is bad, and what they would do in replacement of Trump, like Bernie Sanders, for example, who thought Obama was too hostile on immigration, too rough, thought Hillary was too tough on immigration, wanted to open the borders even more than the rest of the loonies. And the rest of his platform was basically, it'd be really cool to have free everything. Yeah, that would be really cool, but there's no free lunch, and you just kept talking about all these free things everybody was going to have. And it's just bullshit. So, I mean, it's not an alternative. It's better. I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, a dead Democrat is better than a living Republican. There's no doubt about it. I mean, a dead, festering, maggot-infested one. But if I had to, hold my nose and I got to press the button, well, yeah, I know which button to press. But it just sucks because they're not a lot better. They are maggot-infested blight imposers because they're so far from getting it right. So this is the real mission statement: so the real objective is to dethrone the Trump. For the dissident scientists, it's to keep pointing out how the pop science is made up crap, and that's all it is. It's all made up crap. The evidence for everything they claim is weak as fuck, and that needs to be pointed out, and that we all can agree on. But as soon as we start getting to arguments about what the real truth is, the alternative plan, the replacement for Trump, then we're going to get into trouble. Because, just point out that I am right and you people are all fucking wrong. So, it's just the way it is. Sorry. But, yeah, I've got the right theory. You've all got the wrong one. So I'm not going to help build your wrong theory. I'm not going to put your wrong theory in the place of the wrong theory. I'm going to put my right theory in that place. So that's where we're going to get into trouble. And so anyway, so this, like I said, I don't need to defend the word charge. I don't even like it as a concept. I'd like to have something a little more descriptive of the fact that these particles are filters, and they're filtering a force that's polarized. That is, that it has two flavors. This flavor and that flavor, or square flavor and round flavor. Something like that. A better description of what charge represents. Especially that key word of filter, because that's really what a magnet is. But charge is a real thing. I mean, maybe he claims you can say this because he'll say, we have a theory that doesn't need charge. Well, I'm just saying it's one hell of a high level of accomplishment, in my opinion, if you can explain the phenomenon of electrons and protons, or the mechanics of an atom, without charge. I mean, go ahead, try, but you have to come up, and he doesn't have anything. He has a book he hasn't finished writing yet, so there's nothing to back up his accusation that charge is some kind of erroneous, superfluous concept that has no relationship to any kind of experimental data, when it's the most, it's kind of the most experimentally made visible data there is. The entire Industrial Revolution was based on positive and negative charge. Damn, the storage of charge. Come on. Anyway. So enough articulated, I believe. Yeah. So that's sort of a separate subject. And otherwise, well, I guess I could say a little bit more about the sing air. Yeah, steel airs, and that's it, steel air. Alright, so, there she is there, looking a bit grieved. So she was saying things that were kind of just funny from my perspective. Okay, she's talking about what she would do. Like, I'm cleaning up my life because yes, I have to get the hell out of here. And so she's doing what she has to do before she can kill herself thing. And the two things on the list were skydiving and bungee jumping. And I was just like, she's really smart for somebody so young. A lot of perspective. Really, really. I like it. I like the way she compiles concepts. But, you're just saying that these two ambitions I've never seen in anybody but silly, frivolous idiots. Because it really won't be the orgasm you think it is. Skydiving is just going in a car really fast, in a convertible and standing up or something. It's just windy. It's going to be a little bit visually interesting and windy, and that's it. It really isn't all that. And bungee jumping is just retarded. It's just retarded. It can't possibly be anything else but retarded. It's just like, let's see if I can actually cause some neurons to actually get ripped to pieces in my brain for no good reason whatsoever. It's like seeing if your skin will catch fire, by pouring gas on it and lighting it. Oh, does my skin burn? It probably will, yeah. But you can't imagine events that are just so short. They last 10 seconds. Bungee jumping is 10 seconds. For what? What do you think that 10 seconds is going to do? I just don't see it. Yeah, I see it only if you have some sort of ego problem and you have to prove something to yourself that you have the courage to do it or some kind of crap like that. But if you're going to kill yourself anyway, then why would you waste time with that crap? I got to get my courage badge before I kill myself? Come on. But anyway, I don't mean to, I understand everybody lives for completely different reasons. Everybody has these completely different things that they enjoy and that they don't enjoy. And that's a real problem in finding solutions that all of us can agree on. Is because we don't like anything there. We just everybody likes to smear some different kind of spread on their bread, and it just makes it really hard to see that everybody gets fed, so to speak, something like that. All right, enough. It's hot in here still. Yeah, so that's enough of a video. So, till the next time and such, the next exciting episode of, working on it.